Mark, Emily, and Jake had known each other since high school and remained close friends even as each followed different paths in life. Mark was the funny one, always quick with a joke to ease the tension. Emily was his opposite, quiet, easily frightened, with a sharp intuition for the unusual. Jake was strong and adventurous, the one who constantly dragged the group into risky trips. One summer weekend, Jake suggested they spend the night at a secluded beach he had found on a map, hoping for a night under the stars that would be different from anything they'd experienced before. They had no idea that this trip would mark the beginning of a nightmare without end. Jake's old pickup truck rumbled to a stop on the winding, sandy road. Before them stretched a long, desolate beach, silent and empty, with only the rhythmic crash of waves echoing like the heavy breath of the ocean. The setting sun bled crimson as it sank below the horizon, staining the water with a wash of blood-red light. "This is amazing," Mark shouted, hauling a heavy backpack over his shoulder, his eyes shining with excitement. Emily shivered slightly. "It feels too empty. There's no one here but us." Jake grinned, clapping her on the shoulder. "That's the point. One night in a place no one knows, just us, the waves, and a campfire. Trust me, it's going to be unforgettable." They quickly pitched a tent, lit a fire, and gathered around. The smell of grilled food and their laughter drowned out the steady sound of the waves. As night fell, the star-studded sky unfolded above them like a dream. It all seemed perfect until it wasn't. Emily suddenly froze and whipped her head around. She swore she had just heard someone whisper directly behind her, yet when she looked, there was nothing but the cold, salty wind. Mark frowned when he noticed a trail of wet footprints glistening in the sand, stretching from the shoreline toward the fire, though no one had passed by. Meanwhile, Jake, wandering curiously near the cliffs, stumbled upon a decaying wooden shack. Inside, scratched deep into the rotting walls, were words scrawled over one another. "Don't let them call your name." Emily returned to the fire, her face pale as she tried to hide her fear. But then the flame suddenly shrank, flickered once, and died, plunging the beach into suffocating darkness. The silence that followed was unnatural, broken only by the whisper-like crash of distant waves. "Jake, did you do something to the fire?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. Before Jake could answer, Emily screamed. She felt an icy, dripping hand clamp down on her shoulder. But when she spun around, there was nothing, only the black void. The three huddled close together. From the waves came a distorted laugh, shredded and broken, like the sound of wind being torn apart. In the darkness, pale shapes shifted, sometimes near the shore, sometimes vanishing beneath the water. With each crashing wave, they drew closer. Mark's face drained of color as he grabbed a dry branch and tried to light it with shaking hands. The tiny flame that sparked to life was instantly snuffed out, as if crushed by invisible fingers. From far off, a voice rose, long and mournful. "Immediately." Emily collapsed to her knees, clutching her ears, stammering, "It's not me. Don't call my name." Jake dragged them both, sprinting toward the shack. But as they neared, the shack's door creaked open by itself, yawning wide to reveal pitch darkness inside. And in that instant, they saw it, a figure standing within. Soaked, hair hanging in tangled ropes over its face, with wide, milky eyes locked onto them. Jake clenched his teeth and hauled Emily to her feet, shouting, "Run! Don't look at it! Mark rushed forward, but he was too late. The pale figure glided out of the shack, its unnaturally long arm whipping forward to coil around his neck. Mark screamed, kicking and clawing in desperation. The figure dragged him through the sand, gouging deep trails, then yanked him into the churning black surf. His cries were swallowed whole by the sea, leaving only a froth of red bubbles drifting on the tide. "Mar!" Emily sobbed, but Jake pulled her, forcing her to run with all her strength toward the shack, hoping at least its walls could shield them. They slammed the door shut and stumbled inside. The entire shack trembled, as though something circled it from outside. Emily collapsed, trembling violently. Jake gripped her shoulders, trying to steady her. But then, a whisper rose directly behind him in the darkness. "Jake!" Before he could turn, a dripping figure materialized at his back. Bony fingers seized him and wrenched him backward. Jake screamed, clawing at the doorframe, but the pull was too strong. The sound of snapping bones cracked through the room. Then his body was gone, leaving only a spreading pool of blood on the rotting floorboards. Emily collapsed, her eyes wide with terror. The shack fell silent again. Outside, the waves still pounded, but now they sounded like cruel laughter echoing endlessly. Emily sobbed, curling into herself on the cold shack floor. Jake's blood still stained her legs, but there was nothing now. Only the sea and the shriek of the wind. She clutched her head, bracing for death. And then, all at once, silence. A heavy, unnatural silence, as though the ocean itself had swallowed everything. When she finally opened her eyes, the sky had paled to a lifeless gray. Dawn's weak light filtered through the cracks of the shack. Stumbling out onto the sand, Emily's feet pressed into trails of blood that faded into the waves. Mark was gone. Jake was gone. Only she remained, a fragile survivor. They found her later that afternoon, sitting motionless on the beach, her eyes empty, her lips mumbling over and over. "They're still calling my name. They're still calling my name." From that day on, Emily lived, but her life was no longer her own. Every night she dreamed of her friends being dragged into the black waters, of twisted laughter behind her, of wet footprints appearing outside her window. People said they often heard her screaming in her sleep, begging someone not to call her name. And sometimes, when Emily looked in the mirror, she swore she could see them behind her. Soaked, pale figures with milky eyes, whispering from the shadows. "Why?" The highway cut through the silent Midwest countryside, autumn winds howling through bare trees. 3 close friends, Ethan, Lily, and Mark, drove their rusty pickup truck toward a nearly forgotten small town. "You sure you really want to do this?" Lily asked, her anxious eyes fixed on the darkening woods outside. "Come on, it's just an abandoned cabin." Ethan smirked, gripping the wheel tighter. "We'll shoot some videos, post them online, could even go viral." From the back seat, Mark cracked open a beer and scoffed. "Yeah, viral. Unless tomorrow's headline reads, 3 teens missing in the woods." They all laughed, but the laughter was short-lived, swallowed by the cold, heavy silence of the evening. B. The sun sank behind the tree line, the sky turning a bruised purple. The cabin appeared out of the shadows, crouched in the forest like a predator waiting to strike. Its wooden walls were rotting, the roof sagged inward, windows shattered like hollow eye sockets in a skull. Ethan pushed open the front door. It groaned out a long, high-pitched creak, echoing like a dying voice. "Jesus Christ," Mark muttered, gripping his beer tighter, eyes darting nervously at the darkness inside. Lily lifted her phone, recording. Dust swirled through the air. Broken planks and rusted nails littered the floor. Her camera panned across a cracked window, and for a split second, a gray figure flashed past outside. Lily gasped, heart pounding, and replayed the footage. On screen, the shadow was clear. But when she looked with her own eyes, the window was empty. Nothing but the sound of wind moaning through the trees. "You saw that, right? Someone's out there," Lily whispered. "Probably just the wind, or a branch," Ethan said, but his own stare lingered a moment too long. From upstairs came a sudden thud, 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 like heavy footsteps running. Mark swore. The hell was that? Ethan forced a shaky grin, gripping his flashlight. Probably an animal. But his voice cracked. "Yo, no hands." In the dust-choked living room, Lily checked her footage again. Her eyes widened, face drained of color. "Ethan, Mark, look." On the phone screen, the cracked wall behind them was covered in bloody handprints, smeared and dripping fresh red. But when they turned, the real wall was nothing more than peeling wood and mildew. The air grew heavy, cold, as if someone unseen was breathing down their necks. We need to leave, now." Lily's voice shook. Before Ethan could answer, the door behind Mark slammed shut, the sound thunderous, rattling the whole cabin. "Shit! Who closed that?" Mark shouted. And then it happened. A blood-soaked hand pushed out through the wooden wall and clamped onto Mark's shoulder. With a violent jerk, it yanked him backward. "No!" Mark screamed, clawing at the doorway, but in seconds his body was dragged into the darkness, swallowed whole. All that remained was a long, smeared trail of blood across the floor, vanishing into the wall. "Mark!" Ethan bellowed, pounding on the wood, his fists striking splinters as if the wall itself was bleeding. Lily collapsed to her knees, phone slipping from her grasp. The camera still recording the horror, the echo of Mark's scream lingering in the suffocating metallic stench of blood. "Ow!" Ethan and Lily stumbled down the narrow stairs, their flashlights flickering against the damp, mold-stained walls. The basement reeked of rot. As the beam of light swept across the room, they froze. From the ceiling, desiccated corpses hung by rusted hooks, swaying gently as if stirred by an invisible breeze. Their hollow eye sockets seemed to stare right into the intruder's souls. "Dear God," Lily whispered, trembling. Suddenly, a cold gust extinguished her flashlight. In the darkness, wood groaned, a wet sound, like flesh peeling. Then, a bloody hand burst through the wall and grabbed Lily by the wrist. "Ethan!" she shrieked, her voice shattering the silence. Ethan lunged forward, but another set of crimson fingers clawed at Lily's shoulders, dragging her screaming into the wall. Her scream cut off. Silence. Only the faint drip, drip, drip of blood echoed through the basement. Ethan collapsed to the floor, chest heaving, eyes wide in terror. He was alone now. Completely, horribly alone. Wow. Panic overtook him. Ethan stumbled up the stairs, tripping over broken planks, slamming his shoulder into the front door until it cracked open. He burst into the night, running blindly through the forest. Branches tore at his clothes and skin, but he didn't stop until he reached the highway. There, under the pale moonlight, he dropped to his knees in the middle of the asphalt, hands smeared with blood. He began to laugh, a broken, hysterical laugh that echoed across the empty road, twisted with sobs. That was how the truck driver found him, sitting in the middle of the highway, laughing and crying at once, his hands painted red. Ma, will may. When the police arrived, they tried to question him, but Ethan only babbled nonsense, repeating the same phrases over and over. They're still there. Don't open the basement door. The blood is calling me. In the forest, officers discovered Lily's shattered phone. The final recording showed everything. Mark's sudden abduction, the bloody hands, Lily's scream, and the last image, Ethan's manic laughter as the camera clattered to the floor. News spread quickly through the small town. Old rumors resurfaced. Locals whispered, "That cabin's cursed." A whole family was slaughtered there decades ago. Kids have gone missing before, and their bodies were never found. Some swore the cabin was a gateway to hell itself. May, auntie. Bibande selling shoe, why, yours, on me. Ethan was institutionalized in a psychiatric ward. At night, attendants reported that he smeared his own blood across the walls, drawing red handprints over and over again. Meanwhile, detectives revisited the cabin. In the basement, on the rotting walls, they discovered something chilling. 3 fresh, wet handprints had appeared, dripping blood. None of the missing bodies were ever recovered. The story closes with the cabin standing silent in the woods. The camera pans toward its cracked window. And there, in the shadows, a bloody hand slowly waves to the viewer. No, Naya.